is your host, Benjamin Saxton, and welcome to a Fighter's Chance podcast, where we give people in the combat sports world an opportunity to talk about the things worth fighting for. Today's guest is Peter Barrett, making his UFC debut August 8th. Welcome, man. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. I'm really excited to talk with you today. You've been 13-3 in your professional career. You've tried to do your debut a few months ago. That didn't really work out. Nobody really was planning for COVID, all of this stuff going on. But I'm happy to have you on. And those that don't know you yet, I'd like to learn more about you. They're going to learn August 8th. But
sure.
I'd like to just kind of learn about you, kind of how you got to this point in your career, kind of what drove you to fighting, and let's just kind of kick off the conversation there.
Sure. So, I wrestled all through high school. Yeah, I had my eye on the UFC back then. I graduated from high school in 2005, so that kind of gives you a timeline of like the Ultimate Fighter 1, 2, and 3 was all taking off right around there. But wrestling kind of found me. Wrestling wasn't something I went to high school to do. It was something to do in the winter that became a passion, and then I ended up quitting football and lacrosse to focus on wrestling. There was just something about wrestling like woke me up and made me feel alive. Like that one-on-one competition, like putting in the discipline and seeing the direct payoff by way of becoming a better wrestler, beating guys wrestling twice a week, putting yourself on into competition regularly. And some Brazilian jiu-jitsu schools had been opening up in the area. So I'm from the South Shore of Massachusetts, south of Boston, just to give everybody a geographical reference. But I was like an 18-year-old kid. I was like, man, that's some fucked up shit. That's like hardcore. Like these dudes go in there and beat each other up. Like, right. I like wrestling, but wrestling with punches seems a lot. Like punches and kicks seems like a lot to handle. It's bad enough to like trying to block a double and wizard crossface. Now worrying about elbows, knees, punches, kicks. So I was kind of like too afraid to really get into it. Went to college, 4 years, played rugby, bunch of bros, bunch of my buddies. We'd always get together by the big UFCs. Back then it was Shane Carwin was a big name, and I went to school out in Denver, Colorado. Shane Carwin, there's like Denver, Colorado is a hot spot of like every niche sport. They have like a little grasp of Denver or some part of Colorado, which is really weird because like MMA has a huge hotbed there, and I also played rugby, and rugby is a huge hotbed in Colorado as well. So it's like random sports that take off up there. But like it was the Chuck Liddell series. Like Chuck Liddell was big back then. Carwin was big back then. Couture was big back then. Yeah. So we were just, we'd get the pay-per-views, we'd have a bunch of people over, throw a kegger. And it was always like in the back of my head, is that something you can do? Is that something you can do? Is that something you want to do? And I was like, you know what? College right now, let's do one thing at a time. Played rugby all through school. And my senior year, I was just like, screw this. I had a falling out with the coach. One of my buddies was like, hey, there's this kid, Brandon Thatch, that teaches kickboxing downtown. Do you want to go try Muay Thai? I think you'd really like it. And I was like, yeah, sure. Come to find out, Brandon Thatch is like the dude of MMA in Colorado at the time. And he was like one of my first coaches that really like gave me a taste of what competition in MMA was like. I went down and joined this gym. I think I was there for a couple months. My senior year spring break was coming up, and he's like, hey, you said you have vacation coming up in a couple weeks. If you want to come to fight team for that week, you're more than welcome. Come down. You've got really good wrestling. Your hands are all right, but we need the push. There's not like wrestlers are few and far in between sometimes in the MMA world, or at least sometimes, or at least at that time back in 2006, 2007. Well, I lied. That's probably about 2009 at this point. 2009. So long-winded answer. I do a week with the Ring of Fire. The Ring of Fire guys, it was a big promotion back then. It was a promotion back then that Sven Bean ran before he switched up. I think he was with RFA and LFA at that point.
Did you know what you were getting yourself into when you're like, oh, a week of vacation, or come down to fight camp?
Well, I did, and it was awesome because like I always was like, he could tell that I wanted more than just the kickboxing. He could tell that I wanted more than just the jujitsu. I did a jujitsu tournament. I smoked everybody, and then they were like, okay, come to fight team. It was invite only. It wasn't like I could just show up and
Okay.
and join in. So I got the invite, and I really fell in love with it, but life got in the way. Had to figure something out for work. Was living in Colorado, not really focused, not really doing much. Was kind of like a club rat, working at this club, that club, late nights, early mornings, the whole nine.
Right.
And then when I finally moved home, and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I was in more of a controlled environment. I was living at home, sharing a room with my 18-year-old brother when I was 25 years old. So it's like a fast reality check, and it gave me something to focus on, and it gave me an outlet, and it gave me a direction. And the fire that I felt that week training with those guys came back right away. My cousin was fighting at the time. I went and saw the level of competition in Massachusetts, and I was already training. So I was like, you know what? It's time. Put my name in, call a promoter, get me a fight. I fought a kid who is now a teammate, lost my amateur debut. It was like a 9-minute hockey fight. We sat in the middle and we just beat the shit out of each other and we had a blast. And I felt like I won that fight. We've had many battles in the room after the fact to decide who actually won that fight, but it was a barn burner. It was a brawl. Like, I just, threw my hands from here, and it was a blast. But it really reminded me of wrestling, to bring that all back to the high school wrestling, competing that night and losing and feeling that hunger and desire. Like, the night I lost my first fight, I would have fought 3 more times that night, because that's how much like life was pumping through my body. And it was just like an incredible feeling. It was like it was satiating. Like I just got in there and I fought another dude, and like, albeit I lost, it was like one of the most incredible experiences. Like, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it right now. Like, one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had. And it just took over like that. I knew that night that this is what I wanted to do by any means necessary. And that was in, I think 2011, it was my amateur debut. And then now here it is 2020, and I'm making my UFC debut. So I got a little bit of
That's awesome from you to have your first fight, it's a brawl. You guys are kicking each other's ass. And then to not come out on top and be like, this is my calling. I mean, you got to know at that point, if
I was like, that's the coolest fucking thing I've ever done, and I want more of that right now. So I was like, is there any way you can get me another fight tonight? Like, I need to go get that back right now. Like, I can't believe I just lost in front of my whole family like that. Like, I need to go get my hand raised. Let's do it. And he was like, yeah, in like 10 weeks. I'm like, what?
Yeah, maybe if you were 15 years ago or something like that, where they were just like doing fight after fight after fight, but
like multiple fight tournaments in the same night. Yeah. So it was cool.
That's really awesome. And then I guess I'm very curious of, as you found your passion, and as you're fighting, and I looked and you did some amateur fights, you won some, lost some, then you put your foot in the ring for your first professional fights. And overall, I mean, you've had really great success in your professional fights. You're 11-3. At what point or what stage was that communication trying to get you to the UFC? I mean, obviously, when you go pro and that's what you want to do, you're like, let me get there. But at what level do you think, or at what point were you like, okay, I think I can do this now? Like, I can actually get to that level, and I can do some serious damage.
I mean, I'll tell you, I was thinking that same thing when I was a 1-1 amateur. I was like,
okay,
fuck this. This is it. I can beat anybody. And I mean, you got to gas yourself up a little bit like that to get to the next level. Like, of course, when I was getting into it, I thought I was the best in the Northeast, and little did I know that there were a lot of other people out there doing what I was doing, and much better than I was at the time. But in my little bubble of what I was focusing on, I was just concerned with being the best that I could be, and always putting that foot forward. But I had a lot of people in my camp and close to me that knew that the end goal was me getting to the UFC, even as an amateur. Like, I started fighting really late in my life for an MMA fighter. Like Manny Bermudez, another kid from Abington, grew up with my little brother, good friend of mine. He went right out of high school, right into MMA while in college, got the jump, and he started fighting when he was like 18 years. As soon as he was able to fight, he was fighting.
Yeah.
I didn't do that until I was 25. So it was just like, I was a little bit older. I knew what I wanted, and I had the people around me that could help get me there. And we just all, stayed focused on that mission. The guy I started with here in Massachusetts, he had trained under Crew Mark Delagrati when he was fighting. So when I kind of outgrew his gym, he brought me up to Crew Mark Delagrati. I also went more of let's say a lateral move with another coach that had more fighters that could give me to make me a smaller fish in a bigger pond versus being a really big fish in a little pond. So I made a lateral movement out to a close friend, Michael Gresh, Loco Lobo. He's an OG in the New England MMA game. Anybody that knows MMA in New England knows who Loco Lobo is. And he was also a student of Crew Mark Delagrati. So I had this network through Sit Yat Tong that was really helping me get along and get through. And when we made that pro jump, Tyson Chartier, who now owns and operates Top Game Management, was a Sit Yat Tong fighter and was making the jump to management right along the same time Rob was getting his foot in the door with the UFC. So Tyson has always been a resource, has always been someone I run all my fights through. He wasn't necessarily representing me from 1-0 to 5-0, but he was telling me, don't fight this dude, shut up on Facebook, fight this dude, shut up on Facebook, you're not fighting this guy, shut up on Facebook. Like, he was pulling me in, letting me go, pulling me in, letting me go, but he was guiding me. And then also Mike Polvere was a huge help, the owner of Cage Titans. He's now one of my best friends, and he saw the passion in me. He saw the direction in me. He knew that if he invested his promotion in me, that it would pay off in the long run. And here we are. I've only fought outside of Cage Titans. If you looked at my record, you'll see I fought outside of Cage Titans twice. I fought one for CES, but behind the scenes, CES went to Cage Titans and asked them to put on a show under their name because Bellator showed up the same weekend and took all of their fighters.
Okay.
And they had a contractual TV commitment to put on a show for whoever was running. Maybe it was FX at the time. Whoever was running the Friday night fights that are now on wherever CES is broadcast. But they had a Friday night spot they needed to put on a card. They called Cage Titans. Cage Titans he pretty much gave him his whole packed card and then did another card the night after. So that was the one fight that I left Cage Titans, but I was still really fighting for Cage Titans. It was just under the CES banner. Really weird. But I'm just a super loyal dude. So I've got everybody that's been with me along the way still plays a role in my camp.
I saw you. I quote me if I'm wrong or tell me I'm full of shit, but I thought I saw a tweet that said, for everybody that brought you or helped you get you to where you are, you were gonna bring them to the fight or get a T-shirt for them or something like that. Was it?
Maybe so last year when I fought on Contender, I made the last 2 weeks before I left to go fight on Contender, I made a point. It was I was in a phase of gratitude, and it was just I was putting up a post how this person helped me along the way.
Awesome.
Michael Varner was a big instrument in getting me to the right places in New England and not letting me, not that he didn't let me, but he really he cared about his guys at the time, or at least the guys that he knew were invested as much into what he was doing as he was in them. And, it could have been, I could have easily gone to the wrong school or left to go cross train and never come back. But he was very disciplined in the respect that, we did gi jiu-jitsu 4 days a week. We had to do our Muay Thai. We had to do our no-gi grappling. He managed our strength and conditioning. So I took a big chunk of time to recognize everyone that really helped me along the way and just express the gratitude, because without those foundations, maybe it would have happened sooner. Maybe it never would have happened.
Right.
We never know. But I got to give it back to those that gave into me.
So how was that experience getting that call from whoever you received it from or text saying, hey, that moment that you've been waiting for, your UFC debut is happening. How was that? Walk me through kind of that experience.
So that experience was more so my call for the Contender.
Okay.
There was some back and forth. Sean Shelby and Crew Mark have a good relationship. He called Crew Mark about another guy to fight Sang Hoon Yu, and Crew Mark was like, listen, that kid's a 45er. He just picked up a 55 belt on a regional circuit because he's good, but you're trying to match him with Sang Hoon Yu. And the kid that they called about, offhand, he fought TJ Brown that night. The kid that fought TJ Brown the night that I fought on the Contender was who they called Crew Mark for to fight the guy that I fought. it was just a super big mismatch. So crew went to work and was like, he's awesome. Get him a fight at 145. I've got a 55er for you. I don't even need to call him. He'll fight your guy. He'll fight him. He'll fight him. No big deal. So there was some negotiation. Do we want him? Do we not want him? I'm 11-3. I'm 1-3 in my last 4 fights. Is this really someone that we want to put on the contender? Is there going to be questions on this and that? His age, he's old. What about this? What about that? And then they wanted to know, you know, what was it? Why did he just lose 3 fights? And it just so happened to coincide with the loss of my younger brother and my dad back to back on 3 months period. Like my younger brother passed in July and my dad passed in September of the same year. So all I did was try to fight and get through it, and I just was spiraling in the other direction. And fights that I should have won, fights that I could have won, fights, you know, maybe that I shouldn't have taken because I was so headstrong. But I went on a 3-fight skid. Then I won a fight. Then I lost a fight. Then I won a fight. So with that explanation and my most recent performance, they decided to take me for the contender. And that was like the universe is finally coming, is aligning for me. And like, we had to put together this huge scheme to get me in front of Sean Shelby. So when if it came time for a phone call for a 55er, my name would be fresh in his mind. So like, mind you, before the phone call between Sean Shelby and Crew Mark, Richie Santiago, another local kid, was fighting on the Contender Series last summer. He was on like week 2 or week 3. I ended up fighting on week 10. So I went out with those guys. I went up to Sean Shelby. I said, hey, Sean, I just wanted to say hi. I'm one of Crew Mark's guys. He told me to come introduce myself to you. I just want to put a face to a name. 3 weeks later, he's like, remember that kid that came up and said hi to you? He's the dude I'm trying to get you to fight. Like, he's the guy that's going to fight for you. He's the dude. So it was like me and I'm jumping on the story a little bit, but me and Mike Pulver, the owner of Cage Titans, came to me and said, I'm going out with Richie. I need you to be there with me. We're going to introduce you to Sean Shelby, and we're going to push like hell to get you on the contender this summer. Because if you don't make it now, they're definitely not signing you at 34. They were looking like the qualifications that were never came out said exciting, under 30, and no losses and at least 3 wins. I was already over 30, but I was exciting, plenty of wins, like knocks everybody. Like, it was my age that and my most recent fights that were the biggest issue. So once we hit that home run and I got that opportunity on the contender, I knew in my heart that this was my time. This was the opportunity to there would be no holes barred. Like, we were putting everything into it. We pretty much planned a walk-off grand slam home run in the World Series with 2 outs, and we hit it.
Right.
You know, I got out there, I fought Sang Yu. Oh boy, like he came out, blew his load in the first round, really tried to put me away. I had to get through that round, started turning the tide in the second and the third, and just took that fight. And it was just like, that fight is like a very great metaphor for my life. You know what I mean? Like, everything that I've been through, everything that I've gone through, everything that I've had to learn, all the doubts that I've had, all the questions that came in to me about me, you know, was summarized in that fight. Like, it hit me hard. He hit me hard. He took me off my feet, was on top of me. Gillett, like, had a crucifix hold, rabbit punches, rotated for an armbar. I ended up getting out of the armbar, getting on top, and then just systematically beat him down the second and third round. And it was just like having the confidence in myself and digging to a really, really deep place to get through that, to accomplish what I wanted. And just like, I lightly touched on it, but I mean, if you watch my promo for the Contender Series, you got a pretty good idea of what kind of hell I went through after my dad and my brother passed. Like, there was a lot of self-medicating. There was a lot of self-destruction. There was a lot of closet drinking. There was a lot of, you know, not being truthful with a lot of people, hiding a lot of things, just like the worst version of myself, while trying to trick everybody to let everybody know that I was doing all the right things. Like, I was showing up to practice, and then I'd get a handful of nips on the way home. I would sleep it off, wake up, go crush my workouts in the morning, but it was like I was still drinking every night. I was still, you know, fucking off on the weekends. Like, it was 2 weeks before I fought TJ Brown, and me and my brother and my mother had just, you know, we'd all moved apart through life and then bought a house with an in-law for my mom and my brother to carry on their lives with. And that was 2 weeks before I fought TJ Brown, and we put down a fifth of Jose Cuervo while moving into the house, because like I was just like really sad, really upset, was trying to numb everything out, very unhealthy, sought professional help, worked through all of it, and then finally got my shot with the Contender Series. And when everything like that aligned, I knew in my heart that everything was going to work out, and this is where I was going to belong. And now it was my time to really, really take advantage of this opportunity.
That's awesome. And I mean, that's very commendable, just to be as candid and open as you are with some of your experiences. I mean, there's depression, and that's a very serious thing. And I've had family on my own side that kind of has gone through loss of siblings and stuff like that. My wife has gone through that, and it's just, it's tough. And how you kind of get through it, what someone does doesn't mean it works for the other person, and you try to put that smile on your face and try to pretend like everything's fine, but ultimately it's not. And I'm very excited to hear that now that you got to that Contender Series. They can't say anything anymore about you, your age, they can't say your record. You're right here now, right? It's you and him. You got your debut. Now your career is about to take off. That's awesome.
It's like I don't want to say it's chapter 2. It's probably like chapter 5, but it's going to be one hell of a novel.
Yeah. Quite a few chapters in there, right?
Yeah.
How are you now from your first debut? I call it first debut because that ultimately didn't pan out. I read some, or I heard some interviews that you did in the past back in April, where it was a little bit more difficult for you to train at the height of the pandemic. It was a little bit difficult to balance, should you be training? Should you be giving it all, bringing people into the house, risking, exposure to other people? And like now there's cities or states that are opened up a lot more. So do you feel like now it's a little bit more relaxed? You're able to kind of train the way you want to train?
Yeah. I mean, when everything happened back in March, like nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew what was true. Nobody knew what was embellished. Nobody knew what was, the powers that be trying to scare people for their own good. And I think a lot of that was going on. There was a lot of fear mongering. There was a lot of fear porn, and people were buying into it. I mean, in my heart, I'm a skeptic. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm a nut job, whatever you want to call it, tinfoil hat, the whole nine. But at the end of the day, we saw Northern Italy get locked down because of how bad it got. So you had to, like, without realizing, they also had a really old population, and everybody lives on top of each other in those cities. There's a lot of people in a really small space. So like the conditions were a little different. Maybe that's why we saw it get so crazy in New York. But so you had to wait to know what was really going on. And once, the CDC and the WHO started redacting statements, and my girlfriend being a first responder at a trauma hospital in Boston, she was in the thick of it every day. It was crazy. It was harrowing. It was, everything that you heard it was in the hospitals. But then when you take a step back and you realize that like 90% of the people died were senior citizens and in assisted living homes, like, yeah, we gotta, there's a grain of salt with everything. And we were able to, think critically through all this. In the worst of the worst, when she was at one of the hot spots in Boston, as far as the hospitals were concerned, she never got sick. I never got sick. We did a really good job with self-quarantining ourselves away from people. But we wanted to make sure that we weren't responsible, or I wasn't responsible for someone's grandfather, older relative passing away, because I was being selfish and I wanted to get ready for a fight and I had to have people here. And trust me, that was like a come to Jesus turn between me and my girlfriend as well. And we worked through it, and we're stronger for having gone through it now. But there was a level of her being a health professional, and then a level of being a girlfriend, and me being a professional fighter, and me being a boyfriend, and us having to find something that really worked for the two of us. And once everything kind of calmed down, and her hospital started moving back towards being open for everyone, not just for the COVID pandemic, we were able to start coming up with protocols, in and, shower in, shower out, clean everything down. I have like a big jug of sanitizer that my mat gets cleaned every time someone's on it. And we just really came up with the best possible plan of action to get me training where she was comfortable, knowing that we would minimize any sort of risk of transmitting or I
Right.
don't know what the right word is, sending someone home with something that they don't want to give to their parents or to their grandparents. So once that kind of relaxed, I was really able to pick up my training. I got a good group of guys from Lausanne's MMA that have been working with me 3 days a week for since the end of May. So all 2 weeks into May, all of June, and the last 2 weeks here in July. So we've been getting to work, small groups. It's like the old days. The martial arts were driven right back underground, and then Crew Mark has been very gracious to not have an open door policy, but if I wanted to organize some small group training up at Siatong in Somerville, I have keys to both gyms,
That's
or to his gym. So he was like, listen, don't let it get crazy. It's not an open invite. You and a couple guys doing whatever you need to do, totally fine with it. Clean up after, leave it how you found it or better. And the support of my team really helped me get along. My coach, Andy Cody, he's been a huge help getting me busy, working, hitting pads, doing the right things, organizing training sessions, calling guys for sparring. So as much as it is not a team sport, it's a big team sport. And I feel like I kind of ran away from your question at this point, but
No, it's fine.
this is where I ended up.
It just, I want to just learn about your story. You're sharing your story. I try to do a little homework of my own so I can get a little sense of, where you're at, where your mindset is. That same interview, I heard you say, because you were quarantined, you couldn't train. You were trying to teach your girlfriend how to do, I think it was Muay Thai or kickboxing or wrestle around.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was like, what am I going to have my girlfriend come down here and learn jiu-jitsu, and I'm just going to sit here and practice arm bars on her? Like, come on, that's a little ridiculous, And yeah, I mean, and then what happened? Then what did we see last week? Mike Perry shows up with his girlfriend, and she's in his corner, and he
there you go.
beats old boy like it had a hell of a fight, So it's like you're seeing all these things, and I mean that interview I did kind of really painted me as a little dickhead. I'm not sure if it's the one that you saw. Jason Floyd saw what they did to me, took my interview, made it a headline, put in this one little asterisk. Keep in mind, guys, he lives with his first responder. He's not able to travel. That's his explanation, but this is what he has to say. And they didn't really give me the credit that I'm acknowledging I'm in a really unique situation. It's just hard to see all these other it was just really hard to see MLB, NFL, NHL, all these major league organizations shut down and pay their employees. I saw Bellator do it. I saw everybody do it. And then for me to see the premier UFC not do that, but give everybody first say in when they wanted to fight. I mean, yeah, people told me maybe I shouldn't have said that until I got my first fight, but they were tones that resonated with comments from Khabib's camp, comments from some of the other guys' camps. We're in a global pandemic. We can't expect everybody just to fight. Well, and not knowing what kind of stuff is going, what they have available to them.
Yeah, and I mean, you're not your career, your profession isn't a 9 to 5 at a desk where you can have conference calls and you're fine. You have to be training, and it's not to fight and to progress, and every fight is going to be the next big challenge of your career. So it's not like you can half-ass anything, right? So
right.
I get it. I get it, and I think other people get it too. It still is a weird world we live in. We're not back to normal. Who knows what new normal is going to be? But we all kind of got to make do of whatever works. Well, I want to talk a little bit about your upcoming fight, right? So. Sure. You got a fight coming August 8th. That's the debut. Your birthday's the 10th, right?
Yeah, best birthday present yet.
There you go. So you get that victory. Have you thought about what you're gonna do?
So my goal is to go out there, put on a performance, knock old boy out, cash it on a performance bonus, and pay my mom back all the money that she's helped me out with over the years to keep me in the game and not going to get a desk job.
There you go.
And then I need to finish paying and then pay off my student loans too, because I did go to college for 4 years and I have 2 business. I graduated with a dual business degree, so I'm kind of putting that on the back shelf to really follow this passion project all the way through. So bonusing will get me back up to a level playing field with a few people.
Finishes, exciting fights, that will definitely get your name out there. I have no doubt that you're gonna put on a show. I'm very excited to follow your career. I think you're about to springboard. I think it's really cool.
Thank you.
Do you have any like other? I want to give you the opportunity if you have any special projects or things that you're working on outside of mixed martial arts.
No, I mean, I eat, breathe, and sleep this lifestyle, and it's to and through. I mean, the one thing that I've been focusing on a lot lately has been like my students, my clients, the people that I teach one-on-one sessions with. To be honest, like my little brother's sitting here with me right now. Like he's been with me 3 days a week, and I'm teaching him boxing, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu. He comes to all my grappling sessions with me. I throw him in he just gets thrown to the wolves. And like, guys, it's brand new. Don't hurt him. He'll tap. Have fun. So he's getting thrown into the thick of it. So I've been having a great time hanging out with my little brother who, mind you, he's 13 and I'm 34. I'm 20 years older than him. You know what I mean? So like normally we don't have the opportunity to hang out and like, yeah, he's my little brother, but we didn't have the greatest relationship necessarily 6 months ago. Like I'm still his older brother. I still love him to death, but like we really had the opportunity to hang out and get a lot closer over these months because there ain't been else to do. There ain't been much else to do. And then I can share with him a lot of the things that I've picked up over the years. And I told him this morning, I'm like, listen, the one thing I want to get off to you is things that I wish I knew when I was your age that I know now. So like, if I can eliminate any stupid trial and error stuff that you need to do so you can learn it on your own, like I'll try to share those things with you so you don't have to make those mistakes. Albeit there were probably a lot of people that tried to tell me these things as well when I was his age, and I still had to go do it myself to have the experience to learn from it. But it's just like trying to be a better, bigger brother, and just to be more present with my family.
So if you were to give a piece of advice, similar to what you're saying to your brother, or maybe a fighter that was you 8 years ago, right? That's aspiring to be the UFC. What would be the biggest piece of advice you would say to get you to this stepping stone?
I would have to say, trust your gut. Like, do your homework, do your research. If you're getting into it, don't just go join the gym down the street because it's an MMA gym. Do a little research, find out who's offering the best programs. Find out what schools are doing well in the local scenes. And obviously, if like one school stands out, like that's where you want to go. But if at any point something doesn't feel right in your stomach, excuse me, something doesn't feel right in your stomach at any point, there's probably something deeper telling you to pay attention. And no matter what, I'd say always trust your gut, because in my experience, there are a few times where I got that feeling and I played it out a little bit longer and it didn't necessarily go wrong, but it could have gone a lot better had I just listened to my gut in the first place. So do your homework, trust your gut, and try to surround yourself with people that are where you want to be, because you'll pick up so much just from being in that kind of company.